So needless to say, we had a lot of work ahead of us, and we certainly had some difficulties. So after a few years of going through this pain, trying to involve the open source community at every turn, but we didn't really get a lot of involvement because we sort of told them to go away earlier. We get to the point where we have to make a call and we have to ship something for the fear of completely becoming obsolete. Nobody would remember who Netscape was unless we actually shipped something to users. So what we ended up doing is we just took the whole ball, we called it Netscape 6, and we shipped it. And that was in, I think, 2000. And it was crap. It was absolute, total, unadulterated crap. I feel terrible that my name is connected somehow with that software project, because it was just something that I wouldn't even tell my friends to use. It's not something that was really fit for human consumption. It was just, we have to get this out or we'll face being obsolete. So certainly, we took our pounds in the press because we'd spent 2 or more years. I mean, it had been almost 3 years since Netscape 4 had shipped. And here we shipped this brand new thing on this great new rendering engine, and nobody wants to use it for good reason. So we went back to the drawing board, and we were actually able to spend the time that we needed to do some improvements. We were able to improve performance, we were able to improve memory consumption, we were able to spend the time to do a lot of the polish that we didn't have time for the first go around. So that was Netscape 6.1. And it sort of sucked a little less. It was something that we could almost use on a daily basis. And then 6.2 came out. And it was actually usable. It was actually pretty good. From the history of starting over from scratch and the whole debacle of Netscape 6, by the time it got to 6.2, people could actually use it. And it was actually something that you would want to tell your friends that you worked on. And then it went to Netscape 7 was the next major release. And people to this day still use Netscape 7 as their browser. Given all the badness in its history, it actually turned out pretty good. So where am I? Okay. The problem that we face, though, especially on the Mac side, is that we were constrained by a lot of the infrastructure decisions that were made long, long ago on the Raptor side. And Raptor then became Gecko, which you've probably all heard of Gecko. A lot of the decisions in the infrastructure of Gecko were very Windows-centric. It was designed for Windows, it was built for Windows. The fact that it could be ported to other operating systems was an afterthought, and we actually had to go and do that after we'd already decided that we were going to use this. And so through that and into Zool, we were constrained by a lot of the things we were able to do. We weren't really able to make it as native feeling or even as native looking as we wanted because of a lot of those very low level constraints. And a bunch of us started thinking, should we spend 10 years putting all of this effort into making Zool better, or should we try something else? Should we try and, should we go in a different direction? At about that same time, Apple approached Netscape and said, we're thinking about doing a new browser. Can you guys mock something up, work something up so that maybe we can put Gecko into a Cocoa browser? Like, okay, sure, sounds great. So Vitter and I did a lot of work to take the Carbon widget layer that was in Gecko at the time, port it to Cocoa, and then be able to wrap that in a browser view. And so the very beginning of that was NS Browser View. So we had something that we could stick into a Cocoa application and make just a very simple browser. And we called it NS Browser View because I had every intention that Apple was going to take this and build a browser, and we were going to stick Gecko into the operating system. It was all going to be great. Obviously, that didn't happen, but that's another story for another day. So we had all this code to allow people to put Gecko into a Cocoa application. And with all of this swirl about, well, how do we make Zool be really good on the Mac? We took a look and we said, well, we've got this other thing. Why don't we just build something in Cocoa directly? Why mess with Zool at all it's, what Mac users really want, they want it to feel native. They want it to be fast. They want all of their keyboard shortcuts to work right. They want the menus to work right. They want the buttons to look the same way as they do in all the other applications. These are things that are very important to Mac users. And, maybe let's try something on the side. So a couple of us went off, and Hyatt sort of started it, and a bunch of us sort of came in, and we started doing this little Cocoa browser wrapped around Gecko. And we did it as part of mozdev.org, and not initially as part of Mozilla. And people in the community took notice. They said, this is kind of neat. Because it's fast, it's native, and it's Gecko, which meant that it had all of the power and all of the rendering compatibility that its big brother in Netscape 7 had. So people in the community started to gravitate to this. They saw that we had something, it didn't really have bookmarks, and you could go back and forth, and maybe it had a bookmark bar at the time, but it certainly wasn't a full-fledged browser. But they saw the promise. They saw these guys are going in the right direction. I think I'm gonna follow them. And so through it was Chimera at the time, Chimera 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, a series of very quick iterations. We got to the point where we had a sizable community following. It wasn't too many developers. It was mostly just a user following. But even though it didn't do everything its big brother did, people were really attracted to it. And as part of that, we were actually able to get buy-off at Netscape to work on this full time. So me and Simon Fraser, Chris Sari, Kathy Brady, Conrad Carlin, a few other folks, this was our job. Our job was to make a Netscape branded browser for the Mac out of this little Cocoa open source thing. And we ended up calling that Project X. At the time, so I'd already moved back to Virginia. I was still working for Netscape at the time. So I guess this was 2001, 2002. We were working for AOL. The AOL had purchased Netscape. And we were working full-time on Project X. We had dedicated QA. We had dedicated engineering. We were just the small little team of Mac people working on something that we finally felt really good about. After the debacle of Netscape 6, where none of us, we all felt like we just wanted to hang up our hats and not even be software developers anymore. It was that bad. We finally felt like we were working on something that we were proud of. Like, this is going to be really great. This is going to be world-changing for Netscape in terms of its ability to say, look, we take the Mac community seriously. If this is what Mac users want, we're going to give it to you. So we created Project X. We took the Chimera open source. We did a little bit of rebranding, paid Netscape developers working on it, and we were going to release it at Macworld that year, the January Macworld. So we printed up all these CDs. I still got 10 or 20 of them. We printed up like 500 CDs. We were going to hand them out at Macworld. 2 days before that Macworld, an AOL executive named David Gang, who we all refer to as Dr. Evil, got wind of Project X. And he was like, what's this Project X Chimera thing? I don't understand it. And it boiled down to the fact that Netscape already had a browser. It had Netscape 7, or maybe 7.1 by then. And he, as VP of marketing or whatever position he was at the time, he couldn't fathom how to actually market two browsers. Like, why ship this other one if you already have Netscape 7? I can't understand. No, don't do it. So he pulled the plug on us 2 days before Macworld. So, needless to say, we were all completely devastated again, because we had CDs burned and everything. We were all ready to go. And then they pulled the plug on us.